Tomboys. I bet you clicked on this video because you like tomboys. And who doesn't like tomboys? I should have a podcast about tomboys if I didn't have too many podcasts already. A tomboy, as you probably already know, is a girl who rejects femininity in favour of masculine hobbies, clothes, and mannerisms. The boy part of the word strongly evokes childhood and adolescence. As such, the word tomboy usually only applies to a girl for as long as she remains a girl and not a woman. As a tomboy myself once, I used to wonder what became of adult tomboys. Do they become ordinary women blending into the rest of society, wearing makeup and dresses, or do they have to become the bulldog lesbian archetype? My identity at that time was so strongly linked to being a tomboy that I didn't know what I would be after I was a tomboy. I didn't know what my life would be like if I couldn't be a tomboy anymore. I thought that makeup and fashion were completely pointless and a waste of time and money. When other girls were complaining about not being allowed to wear the same dress for 2 different events, I rolled my eyes and thought that those rules were just fake and they were giving themselves extra work for no reason. Being a tomboy felt like playing life with a cheat code on. It was as if I'd discovered that you could just skip all of the normal steps to being a girl without actually suffering many consequences of that. And maybe that was true for a while. I did have some happy years of childhood and adolescence, and I got to spend time on things that really interested me instead of spending time on things that did not interest me, like wearing makeup and choosing clothes. Only recently did I discover that I was actively sabotaging my own life for years, and I only started to feel the effects of that when I got married. Because I liked video games and had a kind of crass sense of humour, I found it easy to make friends with boys and talk to boys and just have a laugh and have a good time with them. Boys really don't care how pretty you are or what you wear. They just want to spend time with girls, and especially girls who have similar interests to them. Boys don't care if you have good manners, and they don't expect you to talk about their personal problems or get involved in their emotional lives. In fact, being a bit brash and callous is pretty useful for being friends with boys, and I think I learned a lot of skills communicating with boys and socialising with boys that helped me in my career as an engineer, where I mostly work with adult men. But when I was 23, I got married, and since then I have barely heard from any of my male friends. After effectively taking myself off of the dating market, my male friends were just not interested in being friends with me anymore, and if I'm being completely honest with myself, I was not very interested in being friends with them for the same reason. So I tried to make friends with women, and that's when things got really interesting.
Popular, please, it's all about popular. It's not about aptitude, it's the way you're viewed, so it's very shrewd to be very, very popular, like me.
What I discovered when I tried to make friends with women, and I really tried, was that most of them did not want to be friends with me, and I couldn't figure out why at first, because women are so nice. They'll be polite to you and have a fun conversation with you, and you'll never be able to tell that they don't like you until they just ghost you. And there's no easy way to say this, but I noticed a correlation between the women who I managed to talk to, who did want to be friends with me, to put it crudely, how far I could get with these women, and how high their status was, sort of, my rough understanding of their education level, their clothing, what I could guess their income to be. The very highest echelon of women, in terms of status, wouldn't even really talk to me. They would do the bare minimum that social etiquette required. They would do enough so that they wouldn't appear to be rude. And all respect to them. No women were ever rude about me or said mean things to me. I came to realise that my status among women was much, much lower than I had thought it was before. which now that I understand how status among women works, it makes perfect sense. I don't even feel embarrassed to admit that, because I can see so clearly where I've been going wrong for so much of my life that I can blame no one else. It's just completely my fault. There's nothing particularly wrong with me, except that I have been completely neglecting this part of life that I now discover is quite important. I did a live stream on my Woman Hour podcast where we discussed the alpha female, which is to say the highest status woman in a group, in society, the sort of archetypal high status woman that everyone is aspiring to be. They are exactly the kind of women that you would expect would find it easy to make friends. They are beautiful, they are well educated, they have good taste, they can afford to buy expensive things and go on expensive holidays. They drive in a nice car and live in a nice house. They probably have a nice husband, a handsome, wealthy husband, and even their children are well dressed and well behaved. Everything about their life is manicured to be seen, to be judged. They are genuinely likable, kind people who are interesting to have a conversation with, who know how to ask all the right questions and how to make you laugh, how to just make you feel comfortable and have a good time talking to them and being friends with them. And these kinds of high status women, or women who are sort of approaching this level of likability, will not be friends with me. They will make polite conversation with me. I'm so far below them that it's not even worth responding to my messages. I think my status among women is so low that to be friends with me would actually lower the status of many high status women. I'm making this video because I feel that I understand women so much more now than I ever did before. To be honest, I used to think that a lot of the things in our culture that are considered feminine, the things that women care about, that they spend time on, that they worry about regarding themselves, decorating their homes, and sort of just manicuring their appearance, or literally manicuring their nails, all seemed kind of frivolous and shallow and stupid to me before. But it's only recently that I understand why those things matter to women. And it's not stupid, it's not illogical. Women are really, truly judging each other based on these characteristics and based on how much care and how much skill they have in these areas. So it makes perfect sense why women would care about these things, because their friendships, their status in their communities, in society, are actually based on these things. And I realized that it's not just completely superficial either. There are certain opinions, certain values that confer status to people, and to women in particular. If you state the wrong opinion out loud, or you act too judgmental, or you are too gossipy, or there are lots of personality traits that will lower your status and make you less likable to other people and to other women. Rob Henderson famously coined the concept of luxury beliefs, which are the beliefs of high status people who will never be affected by the consequences that these beliefs have on society. For example, high status women are often married, and getting married often raises women's status. But these very same women, high status women who are married, who are benefiting from that marriage, will not express a pro-marriage opinion or say anything bad about cohabitation or divorce or polyamory or casual dating, because to speak negatively about other forms of romantic attachment and dating culture, that would be too judgmental and not egalitarian enough. So to feel more compassionate and to appear more compassionate and open-minded, these women who have a strong preference personally for being married and who are married will not be able to say that they're in favor of marriage, but it is the poorest in society who have to suffer the consequences of the decline of marriage in our culture. It is poor women and poor children who suffer the most from this decline in marriage and this sort of post-marriage society that we're moving into. And for another example, it's rich people who love immigration the most because that makes them feel compassionate. It makes them feel like a good person to encourage immigrants and to encourage refugees to live in our country. But those rich people are also benefiting from immigrants because they get to hire cheap labor, cheap cleaners for their house and cheap employees for their businesses. It is the poorest people who are working at minimum wage who have to suffer the consequences of competing with immigrants for work and living amongst immigrants and living in a community that is less cohesive and less safe than it used to be. As a woman, if I spoke about being pro-marriage, being pro-family, or about being anti-immigration among other high-status women, I would be basically a social reject. They would think I was some kind of bigoted, racist monster. And although they wouldn't say this to my face, or they wouldn't try to get me banned from Twitter, or they wouldn't get me arrested, it would certainly depreciate my social value. It would push me even further down. This is a much more dangerous effect than what we used to call cancel culture. Before it was called woke, we had this idea of cancel culture where if you say the wrong opinions online or if you support the wrong political candidates, then you could get banned from Twitter or you could get fired from your job. And yes, there are some people who this has happened to, but I think the bigger concern for most people is simply losing their friends, of being thought of as a bad person by people who know them, by their network. It's this peer pressure effect that our schools used to warn us about in regards to sex and drugs and doing things that we weren't ready for, that we didn't want. But peer pressure exists throughout your life. And even if it's not quite as intense as it is in adolescence, for adults, I think peer pressure is it's an extremely powerful motivator for making us decide what our opinions are, what are our beliefs, and who we're going to be friends with. And I think this is much more true of women than it is of men, because women, I think, feel this status anxiety a lot more, and they're more likely to have this slightly precarious position amongst their friends that can be, can go one way or the other on a dime, as they say in America. To come back to the original topic of this video, I wonder if other previous tomboys, other grown-up tomboys, are going through the same thing as I am. There's a lot of speculation going around at the moment in the sort of psychology and pop psychology space about the link between masculinity in women and testosterone and autism, or sort of high-functioning autism. Many people who watch this channel have speculated that I have autism, although that has never been confirmed by any kind of medical test or diagnosis, just as a disclaimer. But I wonder if tomboys are associated with a slightly more systematic, less subtle way of thinking. I think it's possible that tomboys suffer from a less sensitive social gauge, being less sensitive to the opinions of others and being less sensitive to their social status, or completely oblivious to it, in other words. I also wanted to make this video to add an addendum to my video from years ago called Why Do Women Wear Makeup? That was in response to a clip that got Jordan Peterson in trouble, where he said that makeup was a sexual signal. And I'm heavily paraphrasing it. Please watch the original clip of Jordan Peterson, and go ahead and watch my video, Why Do Women Wear Makeup, if you haven't seen that. But my point in that video was that women experience a kind of subconscious desire to make themselves look more presentable, more beautiful to other people, including men, not out of a manipulative desire to entice men into falling in love with them, but out of a more sort of subconscious, innate desire to simply look beautiful for its own sake, without consciously thinking about why they might want to do that. But now I think I'd like to make an even stronger case for women not even caring that much what men think of them. Women like myself who are married already, who have no interest in enticing more men. This is all just to say that I believe now more than ever that women are not putting on makeup for the benefit of men, even if they do sometimes do that to go on dates and to make a good impression in an explicitly romantic context. I think most of the time women are wearing makeup and wearing beautiful clothes and putting on perfume to impress other women, to raise their status among just people in general, because it's enjoyable to be seen as an admirable person of high esteem. After becoming a mother, I witnessed just how much competition there is between women just over their children, like the beautiful clothes they put their children in and the beautiful lunch boxes and these delicious lunches that they make for school. And it's probably true that they want the best for their children and they want their children to be likable and to do well, but there's certainly an element of competitiveness and hierarchy among women who can afford the best for their children, and to appear to be good mothers to other women matters a lot to mothers, I think. I've come to understand that social signalling is a much more significant aspect of people's lives and in their decisions than I ever thought possible before. And if you were already aware of this and you already understood everything I've said here, you probably think I'm very naive and unobservant up to this point. But I think that there are a lot of people like me who have been kind of blind to this aspect of life and just getting on with our lives and just doing whatever comes easiest, trying to just give ourselves an easy life without caring what other people think. But once you become aware of it, it doesn't mean you have to stop pursuing this stuff. It's still a choice. You can choose to be a slightly renegade, sort of social outcast. If you truly don't care about being liked, then I think that's probably a pretty good way to live as well. But on the other side of things, I think trying to make other people like you, if you go about it in the right way, you're not being manipulative or getting yourself into debt buying things you can't afford just to impress people, I think that's also legitimate as well. Thinking about my channel and my opinions in trying to advance social values and beliefs that I believe are useful to society, that are trying to educate people in useful ideas, the kind of thing I'm trying to do with this channel, I realize now that I'm going to be much more persuasive in doing that if people think of me as high status. If people are looking up to me and they care what I think and they think that I'm smart, they're going to listen to me much more than if they think very poorly of me. So perhaps eventually I'll have to move out from under the stairs and start pretending like I live in somewhere much more grand and expensive than where I do live. Maybe I'll get my hair done and put on some makeup, or I'll just use some heavy filters to make myself look prettier so that people will listen to me more. But, well, you made it to the end of the video anyway, so I must have at least entertained you a little bit.